Good day and welcome to the Indian News, Mr. David Seymour. How are you today?
Oh, I'm really well, and thanks for having me on Indian News, Yugal. It's great to see you again.
You're very welcome here. Now, David, yesterday was the last day in the Parliament, and the official campaigning for the election on 14th of October started already. How is it going so far?
So far, so good. We've never had more people coming to our meetings. People are giving our party donations and joining. They're volunteering to put our hoardings up. And the polls say that we're going to do better than ever before, better than we could have dreamed. But that's today. There's 6 weeks to go. New Zealanders have a lot of concerns about how expensive everything is, how unsafe it's become to be on the streets or running a business, and how this government is dividing people by race. Unless ACT shows we can make sure that life will be more affordable, the streets will be safer, and that New Zealand will be, again, united and inclusive, then it's all at risk. And so we're going to have to work twice as hard, not just to retain the trust of people who are currently supporting us, but actually get more support from people I know are out there who share our values. They think that your efforts in life should make a difference. And at the moment, this government takes from people who try and gives to people who don't. And that's making it very, very depressing in being in New Zealand right now.
How positive are you about those poll surveys?
Look, I'm positive, but I'm also very aware that in an election, it's the voter who's in charge. And so people who vote will be sitting there saying, well, can this party make life more affordable? Can it make the streets safer? And can it make New Zealand united? And I think, cutting government waste, that's what we've got to do to make life more affordable. The government is wasting so much money. That's what's making it hard to get by. And only ACT is saying, look, the government's got to spend less. It's wasting too much money. We've got to have more consequences for criminals and more rights for victims. We've got to make that change. And finally, we've got to take the Treaty of Waitangi and say, this is not a document that divides us into a partnership of two races. This is a document that unites us with the same rights and duties. Whether you have been here for 15 generations or one, you have the same basic dignity as a New Zealander and a human being.
That reminds me, the Treaty of Waitangi, yesterday only in the Parliament, Willie Jackson kind of declared that Maoris have a separate set of rights in this country. Yeah. What's your take about it?
Well, I think in a way it's good that Willie Jackson has finally said what many people in Labour believe, that actually the Treaty of Waitangi requires that New Zealanders be treated differently based on their race. Well, I don't agree with that. I think the treaty says we all have the same rights and duties, but at least now Willie Jackson is being honest, saying we actually think we should have different rights because of who our ancestors were. That's so wrong, and it's got to stop.
Your main coalition partner, National Party, if all goes well, you two will be making the next government on 14th of October. But all doesn't seem to be well when it comes to some major issues. For example, you have strongly opposed about the road policy investment, which was declared by National Party, and even New Zealand first joining the coalition. You still stand to what you said earlier?
Well, just going the second one first. So, New Zealand First aren't actually going to get into Parliament. And I tell you why that is. Because basically they're trying to promise to fix they say everything's bad and we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
But everything's bad because they have such bad judgment. They put Jacinda Ardern into power in the first place. So they can't credibly tell people, vote for us and we'll fix the problem that we created. Why would you trust them again? On the roads, we actually released the same policy before National. We should seek more investment into private roads with tolls. If you can get a toll road built earlier, then why wait for the government to save up and build it? Where we disagree with the National Party is they said they're quite happy to get investment in from China as part of the Belts and Roads project. We don't believe in the Belts and Roads project. We want to keep trading with China. We love the Chinese people, the Chinese culture, but we're concerned about the Chinese Communist Party. And so we would be saying, look, I don't think we should have investment that is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party.
Your take on the Nationals just announced a tax policy.
Well, it's a policy that Labor could have announced. Obviously, they hope that promising people $50 a fortnight or $100 a fortnight is going to win people over. I'm not sure that it will. I think people know New Zealand's problems are much bigger than can I get a bit more money out of the government, which is really what they're saying. I think New Zealanders know deep down that we're headed in the wrong direction. We don't just need to change the government, we need a real change. And we need principles like personal responsibility, treating each person the same, regardless of their identity. The idea that if you make an effort and you get rewarded, that's a good thing. Business is a force for good. We need a government that wastes less and produces better education with politics out of the classroom. So we don't just need to have a budget or a tax policy that kind of looks a bit like a Labor policy. We need real change, and that's where ACT comes in.
About the bright line test, I think Lakshman has just announced to reducing the 10 years time to 2 years. Do you agree with this policy?
Well, I mean, I oppose the bright line test, but my question is, if it's a bad idea, why keep it at 2 years? I mean, I opposed it when it was introduced at 2 years. It should be gone completely. Because see, if you make it 2 years, then you've accepted it should exist. And one day, Labor come back in, and they will do it. Might not be for 3 years, might not be for 6 years, might be another 9 years. But if they get in again, the first thing they're going to do is put it back to 10 years. So I say the bright line test is wrong, get rid of it, and we'll be just fine.
I was just going through one of your posts about International Monetary Fund's rating of economic growth of New Zealand. Out of 159 countries, it is placed at 158th place. What do you want to say?
Well, I think that shows how serious New Zealand's challenge is. We want to think we're a first world country, but if you try and go to the doctor or get an operation or get pharmaceuticals, see, healthcare is when we realize we're not first world, because we can't afford the same things as other countries, even though it might be life or death. And so we need to start asking, how do we make sure that New Zealand becomes a wealthier place, get more investment, more trade, better education, more skills, more entrepreneurs? We need to say business is a force for good, not keep beating business with more taxes and regulations. If we do all of that, then maybe New Zealand starts to become wealthier again. But at the moment, this government has sucked up so much money, they've made so many rules and regulations. That means people spend more time paying tax and more time complying with rules and less time producing for themselves and their families. And unless we get that balance right, then New Zealand will just gradually become a poorer place.
Chris Luxon has also announced bringing it back, rather. Do you agree with him?
Well, that's an ACT policy, so of course. But what you notice here is that the National Party doesn't really have new ideas. They have ideas that on a good day, they take an ACT idea. On a bad day, they take a Labor idea. But if you want fresh new ideas and real change, giving your party vote to ACT is the way to. Well, I support the trial should be introduced. So, I mean, it was ACT's idea in the first place to have a 90-day trial. And it should be extended to all workplaces, not just those with fewer than 20 employees. And the reason I support 90-day trials is that we need to have, for the kids, maybe a kid that's got a bad record or done something wrong before, give them a chance. But no one will give them a chance if they know that it's going to be impossible to fire them from day one. Give them 90 days to work it through.
You just said a small controversy about the fighting back comment of Prime Minister Chris Hipkins. What do you have to say about it? Why was this turned into a controversy?
I think it's really sad. Chris Hipkins knows that he can't run on his record. You see, politicians can either say, vote for me because we'll make your life better, or they can say, the other guys are worse, so vote for me. Now, he can't say that they've done a good job because everything they've done has been bad.
So who is calling worse?
Well, I think what Chris Hipkins is saying is, I can't run on my record, so I'm going to try and scare the public that the other side would be worse. Now, that's a negative campaign. And so Chris Hipkins, is attacking, is spreading disinformation. They're being untrue about what they say. And I think it's important that we say that New Zealanders deserve a healthy, honest debate based on facts and based on truth, rather than what we have at the moment, which is Chris Hipkins will say anything to try and save his own job.
So how do you rate the Labour government's 6 years performance?
Well, put it this way, 3 years ago, 50% of New Zealanders were voting Labour. Now in the Roy Morgan poll, 26%. So half the people that voted Labour last time are saying they won't vote for Labour again. That's pretty bad. And if you look at right direction versus wrong direction, nearly twice as many people say New Zealand's going in the wrong direction as the right direction. So they have gone from being very popular, everyone saying the country's going in the right direction, very unpopular, everyone saying the country's going in the wrong direction. And that's because they've spent too much money, they've wasted a lot of money, they've tried to be kind to criminals, let them out of prison, see if they'll be kind back. Criminals aren't being kind back and they're terrorizing people just trying to run a business. And then they've said the treaty's a partnership between races, so your race matters more than your humanity. That this is terrible. And just let me talk about crime for a moment. The ACT Party says that if you commit a crime that affects somebody who's working sole charge, or if their business is attached to their dwelling, then we should give their house, then they should get a tougher sentence. We say that when judges give sentences, they have to think about the safety of the community and the ongoing safety of the victim. So they can't just put everyone out on home detention where they commit more crimes, including against the victims of their original crime. We say that there should be more prison capacity. We say that there should be youth correction facilities where youth offenders are sent. We say 17-year-olds should be held accountable in the adult court. So, there's a whole lot of areas where we believe the government can do so much better, and it's all about consequences for criminals and rights for people who are just trying to get by and make an honest buck.
Great answer. Now, David, how do you rate the relations with world's emerging superpower now, India? How important will that be if ACT and National have the next government on 14th of October?
Well, last week, the Indian government managed to put a landing craft on the moon.
Yes, Chandrayaan.
And I looked at that, event, and I thought we should really pay attention to that, because what it meant is that India is going to be the coming power in the 21st century.
Yeah.
It's got the demographics, it's got the democracy, it's got the growing economy, it's part of the Commonwealth. And New Zealand should be thinking, how do we increase the exchange of people, goods and services, that's trade, and investment with India? I think it's crucial that we find a way to persuade the big Indian dairy companies that New Zealand is actually a friend. We're not a competitor. They can share technology. Fonterra can actually do business with India. That and Indian dairy companies, they shouldn't feel that trade with New Zealand is a threat. They should see it as an opportunity.
We have got a large number of Indian diaspora in this country, around 300,000, and they have a very strong connect to India, but the direct flight connect has still not seen the light of the day. You think it will be possible soon?
Well, I don't see why there should be any problem at the New Zealand end. It's the Indian government that we've got to work on. But I believe that should be a key priority for foreign affairs in the next government.
Yeah.
I think the Naya Mahuta hasn't really prioritised foreign affairs. It's just the same as with the parent category for immigration. We would bring the parent category back and say, you don't have an income test, you just have to buy health insurance, and you have to prove you've got the means to support yourself without needing a pension or welfare. As long as you can look after yourself, why shouldn't you come?
Yeah.
And if it means that more skilled people move to New Zealand because they know their parents can come, then that's good for New Zealand. It's good for those people. So we've got to start thinking about our connections in terms of trade, flights, immigration, all of those areas. We need to deepen our connection with India.
Sounds very promising. One last question before I let you go. Your message to your prospective voters and the Indian community in particular.
Look, I'd just say you might not agree with us on everything, but if you trust us with your vote this time, then we'll work hard for you. We'll actually deliver what we say we're going to deliver. We will cut down on crime, we'll make life more affordable, and we'll end division by race. This country has so much going for it. It deserves not just a bit of tinkering and changing one Chris for another Chris, changing red for blue. It deserves a real change based on fresh new ideas.
Yeah.
And if you believe this country needs real change, then I think ACT might just be the party for you. And I hope that you'll start putting not just policies, but our values in place by giving your party vote to ACT.
And you will remain the National Party's conscience keeper, as you always say?
Well, I tell you what, it's hard to keep the conscience of someone who doesn't have one. We are their conscience.
Thank you so much for your time, David.
Thanks,
and
Yugal.
wish you all the very best for the elections.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Thanks very much.